Hello and welcome to Mansfield Town Shirt Stories, episode 1 here on the Mansfield Town Shirts YouTube channel, starring a former Mansfield Town captain, a man who made over 150 appearances, England C international, and played for Manchester City as well. It's midfielder John Delarue. Roll the intro. Hello John and welcome to Mansfield Town Shirts headquarters. Thank you very much for coming. You're the first person that we've had here doing these videos, so I really appreciate your time and effort of coming here. We're going to talk about the shirts and a little bit about John's career as well while we're here, so we'll get right into it, John. This shirt here, Manchester City, is where you start at the age of 9, I believe. You joined
9 years
City.
old. 9 years old.
Were you a City fan?
It's a strange one really, because I first supported Arsenal growing up because I loved Ian Wright, and Ian Wright obviously an Arsenal legend, so I sort of followed his career. But then, as you said, when I signed for City at the age of 9, they gave us free tickets to every game, so I was watching games, and then you just start supporting them as well. So even to this day, when people say who's my team, I do say City, but I also say Arsenal as well.
Yeah, I thought you were just a City fan. I wasn't aware of the Arsenal connection.
Yeah, it makes it difficult because obviously both of the teams are fighting for the Premiership at the minute, and I say I genuinely am a City and an Arsenal fan, and I'm not just a glory hunter, but I get that one a lot.
Well, you can't be a glory hunter Man City in 2004, 5, that sort of era.
Exactly, and that's the thing. A lot of people think I just support City because they're doing well now, but no, I've been through the hard times.
So the Arsenal connection then is a bit more interesting because you made your debut in the League Cup against Arsenal.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was a bit daunting, to be honest. I was doing really well in the reserves, like playing well. I was scoring, and for me, a holding midfielder, I didn't actually score that many goals. But I just remember we trained over the weekend, and Kevin Keegan just said to me, "Right, you're starting on Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember what day it was." And I was like, it just took me back because although I was doing well, I didn't sort of, in my head, I didn't visualise playing in the first team. And maybe that was a bit of a downfall. I say now when I speak to young players, like, you have to mentally visualise that you're going to play. So I was nervous in the game. I was very, very nervous in the game. I thought I held my own. I thought I did well, but I also know that I could have done better. And I think that is down to the nerves. And the sad thing for me was, not too long after that, Kevin Keegan got sacked, and then Stuart Pearce came in, and he did like me, but he just didn't like me as much as Kevin Keegan did. But yeah, my time at Man City, it taught me everything I knew. So it did teach me everything I knew, and I did enjoy the experience. I was there 11 years in total, and I did love every single minute of it. Yeah.
So was it literally that out of the blue? You literally get a phone call and go, one minute you're in the reserves, next minute you're playing for 21,000.
Yeah, the reserves in the first team, they did train together, which was really good. So like, we had players like Robbie Fowler, Nicholas Anelka, and I was training with them every day. So being around them was no big thing. But as you said, going from playing in front of a couple of thousand in the reserves to 20-odd thousand in a first team game against Arsenal, like it was surprising. And I'm like, I will admit that I probably wasn't mentally prepared for it. I was still an Arsenal fan. I was thinking, I get to play against Fabregas. He's like one of my idols at the time, and Robin van Persie made his debut in that game, and it was difficult as an Arsenal fan. But yeah, I was trying my best, trying my hardest. But it was a tough game. They had Fabregas and Flamini in midfield, who went on to win leagues and win various other things. So it was a tough test for a 19-year-old up-and-coming central midfielder, but I gave it a good go, and I'm proud of what I managed to achieve.
Yeah, I saw the team. I looked early at the team sheet. I thought, I wonder what team it was out. Yeah, there was Van Persie, there was Almunia, there was Flamini. And they all were in Champions League finals like 2-3 seasons later.
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible.
I think Fabregas as well, he was an established first-teamer, but he just come back from an injury, so Arsene Wenger just thought, I'll chuck him in this game just to get him
against
fit.
John.
Yeah, I know, and then I played central midfield with a guy, Antoine Sibierski, who was a striker, but he's been saying to Keegan for weeks, can you play him in midfield? Can you play him in midfield? So I had to play with him, and he was all over the place. He literally left me on my own in the centre of the pitch. So to make my debut in that game, I was happy, but it was tough. It was tough.
Brilliant. So what were your first feelings then, John, on joining Mansfield on loan? Because obviously you made the one appearance for City at the time. Had you had any other options to go out on loan, or Mansfield the first one? Or
I hadn't considered it, to be honest, because obviously I had the chance with Kevin Keegan. Stuart Pearce came in, and Stuart Pearce was my manager at under-17s at City, so I thought, if anything, I'm going to get more of a chance, but it didn't turn out that way. But I just thought in my head, I'm just going to concentrate playing in the reserves, and hopefully I'll get into Stuart Pearce's thinking. But then again, you just turn up at training one morning, Stuart Pearce says, Peter Shirtliff, my good mate, so they must have known each other from
Apparently
somewhere.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he said, my good mate wants you to go out on loan, and I thought, you know what, I want to get more first team experience, so I was like, yeah. I'll be honest, at the time, I wasn't sure what league Mansfield
Did
were
you say
in.
where's Mansfield?
Well, I just thought it's a football league club I want to play. Like, for all I knew, they could have been in the Championship, but I was like, yeah, I want to get playing. And it was only when I got home and I saw they were, I think, second from bottom in League Two. But I thought, again, yeah, why not? Let's embrace the challenge. And look, I'm still living in Mansfield.
You're still here. Your family's here. Everyone's
exactly.
here.
I absolutely, I loved my time at Mansfield. I really did, in terms of the football, the people. I do think it is a special club. So, yeah, it was still daunting though when I moved, went there for like my first couple of training sessions. But I suppose what made it easier at the time, as well as a few experienced lads, we actually had a lot of players similar age to me, like Alex Baptiste, Jake Buxton, Jason White.
Yeah.
And there were a few others who I actually played against in academy football. There was a lad called Jason Talbot, Gavin Pearce. So yeah, they were all people who I'd come up against, and I thought, you know what, I used to play academy football against these guys, and if this club and this environment is good enough for them, Reece Day as well from Man City, then it's good enough for me, and I loved it. I did love it. Every minute about Mansfield Town, except for maybe parts of my last season, I really enjoyed.
This was the shirt that you made your debut in, or certainly the same shirt, against Barnet 4-0. What do you remember of that first game?
Loved it. I was told, because obviously reserve team football, it's all pretty and nice bits of passing. I was told, listen, you need to be tough and make sure you stamp your authority there. So I was prepared for it. But the good thing was, as well as the sort of physical side at the time, I think because we had young players, we did like to try and play football as well. And I loved it. We won 4-0. I think we dominated the game from start to finish. And I think that was coming off a few bad results from Mansfield.
Yeah,
it was really good for me, and I enjoyed sort of my own personal performance. I thought I did well. I thought I still could have improved, but I thought, you know what, this is a really good platform for me. This is a really good place for me to express myself, and yeah, I'll admit, the ultimate aim was to just do well on loan and then go back to Man City and get into the first team. But I thought, you know what, I'm just going to really embrace the experience and play and enjoy it, and I loved it. The lads made me feel welcome, the fans did. That first game was really special to me. I remember it, honestly. I remember more or less every minute of it, winning 4-0. I remember tackles, won, headers, passes. I nearly scored from the halfway line, which would have been would have been a shock, because my goal scoring's never been a massive thing for me, but yeah, I really did enjoy that experience.
And that first game, Richie Barker scored twice. How good was Richie Barker? Because he's up there with my favourite ever strikers I've ever seen.
Do you know what? Well, when I speak to former players like Baptiste and Buxton, what we say about Richie Barker, technically he's one of the worst players I've ever seen. But he just knows what to do as a striker. If you want to bang the ball up to him, he can hold it up. A chance in the box, he can finish. But sort of the other bits, like taking players on or passing the ball, it's not his forte. He's a box player. But yeah, despite his sort of limitations in terms of some of his technical ability, he's someone who I'd have in my team every week.
He just seemed to score every week, didn't he? If you win 1-0, he would score. That was the thing.
Of course he would, and he was a leader. He was actually the first, including my time at Man City, he was the first real leader that I saw as a captain. As I said, we had young players in the team. I think there was John Hjelde, who was an older player.
Yeah, he was getting on.
Yeah, and Kevin Pressman.
And a certain goalkeeper, Kevin Pressman.
Presley was in goal. But apart from that, we were quite young. It was me and Giles Coke, again, at someone same age as me, 20 years old at the time. Stephen Dawson was there, like young players. But Richie Barker, he got us together, and to this day, I do think we underachieved. I really do think
it was a good team, wasn't it? It was a good
players,
solid 11 and a good spine. You look at Kevin Pressman for that level was good. You had the experience of Hjelde, we had Baptiste, Bucko. You know, you got yourself and Stephen Dawson and Richie up front.
Exactly.
With a lot of other good players around him.
We did underachieve, but I liked the spirit we had in the squad. It was a really good spirit, and that's I suppose that's the sad thing when I reflect on my time at Mansfield is we didn't reach our potential at all. We didn't at all. No.
But while we're on the point of this man here, I'm going to pass you his shirt as well. That is Stephen Dawson's shirt from that same season. What was he like to play midfield with? Because he was a real battling, combative, or certainly from the sideline, a combative midfielder.
He was. It was a bit. I felt sorry for him actually, because in my first season, Peter Shirtliff seemed to fluctuate between playing myself with Giles Coke and myself with Stephen Dawson. So Dawson wasn't happy whenever he was on the bench, which I understand, because he was a battler, he was a workhorse, a real workhorse. But I actually came up against Dawson in academy football, so I did know him well. But he did complement my game. I did like to battle, not quite as much as Dawson. So he'd win the battle, he'd give the ball to myself or other players, and then we'd go, and then he'd just let me sit in front of the back four and he'd go and join in as well. So yeah, we really, really did complement each other, and it's nice to see that he then went on to play a bit higher. He ended up in the Championship and things, and I could always see the potential in him, because of his pure determination. He never knew defeat. Like if it was a I don't know, they say 50-50 challenges, he'd go in for a 20-80 challenge and and he'd expect to win. He'd be disappointed if he didn't win the challenge. So really, really nice lad as well off the pitch. Saw him not too long ago in Manchester. Really nice guy. So I do miss playing with the likes of people like Stephen Dawson.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. So when you joined in that season, it was just after the departure of Carlton Palmer, who many Mansfield fans won't want to talk about. Peter Shirtliff had joined. Did you get a sort of sense of feeling the difference between Shirtliff and Palmer, even though you'd not had Palmer? Were the lads a bit, obvious around what had happened? And
they were more relaxed. And just speaking to them, they seemed to enjoy their football a bit more. And I mean, I don't just mean match days, I mean in terms of training. And that's not me saying that Peter Shirtliff wasn't a tough taskmaster, because he was. But he also knew, I don't know, he just seemed better, or I got the idea he seemed better in terms of his man management and making people feel happy and feel involved. Like even the players who weren't getting into the starting lineup, he tried to talk to them, tried to encourage them, tried to motivate them and say, look, you will get opportunities. So there was definitely a shift in terms of the culture at the club, and also just the enjoyment level of the players.
Yeah, and then in January of that same season, you obviously joined permanently. Yeah. Was that something that you had to think about, or were you pretty set on it, or was it an option that just appeared from nowhere? Or
it sort of did appear from nowhere, because I had initially a month's loan, and then that got extended, and then it got extended again, and all through this I was thinking, do Man City want me back or not? And the only reason why I was thinking actually they do is they refused to let me play in the FA Cup. So
I was just going to get onto that. Of all the games for you not to be able to play in, the Newcastle game.
Yeah, but in a way, in the back of my head, I went with the squad. It was really nice. The squad took me. I stayed in the hotel, and I went to the game. But in the back of my head, I was thinking, do you know what? I'm doing something right here, because they're not letting me play in the FA Cup. Yeah. So they must have a plan for me. And I'm thinking, Man City have got a big squad. They don't need a young lad to miss out on FA Cup football unless there's a genuine place for him. So I had my time on loan, and then in my last game on loan, we played Shrewsbury. I remember Joe Hart was in goal for Shrewsbury, and I actually pulled my calf, so I went back to City injured. And then Mansfield, whilst I was at City, they played Darlington and they got beat 4-0. And I remember straight after the game, it must have been, I don't know, 4:55. Peter Shirtliff was ringing me and said, like, we want you back, we want you permanently here. And I said, and he said, would I be interested in coming permanently? And I said, it all depends what Man City say. Yeah. Because if Man City, if you put in an offer to Man City and they accept it, City don't need the money. Right. So it'll be a sign to me to say, do you know what? Go and get your football. So I just said, look, if Man City accept the offer, I'll come. And it turned out they did. And as I said, Man City weren't after I think it was 50,000 or something. Yeah. They weren't. That money wasn't significant to them. So it just made me think, do you know what? You've loved your time at Mansfield so far. Just go there, do well, and then again, the plan was to kick on, and I think up until certain injuries I got, I did have opportunities to leave, and I perhaps would have. But having said that, staying at Mansfield was a great thing for me. I really did enjoy it.
It was a bit of a difficult time for the Stags because we'd had the sort of upward years of the early 2000s, and we were actually on a slow decline. Which even though the players weren't any worse than what we'd had previously, it was just like you say, it was a bit of mismanagement somewhere. But 50,000 is a reasonable amount for a club like Mansfield to spend. Actually.
Yeah, it was, because I know there was an initial offer that got rejected. So then there is a sort of case of just a City trying to recoup some money. But then I found out the money that they got for me went straight to the academy, because the academy had developed me, and City didn't have the mega millions that they've got now. They did have money, but they didn't have the mega millions, and that money City just wanted to recoup as much for the academy as possible. So yeah, it was a sizable amount, but do you know what? It helped me clear things in my head to just think, right, let's just concentrate on Mansfield Town, because when I was on loan, you still think on the back of your mind, how are City doing? How are the players who are around the fringes doing? Like, is there going to be an opportunity for me? So it did help me focus, and I probably, up until I did get injured, I was probably playing my best football then, just with the clear focus and determination just to do well for Mansfield Town.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So when you joined in the January, one of the games that I remember personally that season was a draw away at Notts County, 2-2, I don't know if you remember it.
Yeah.
We talked about this one a little bit earlier, but I will never forget being behind the goal when this man ran around the goalkeeper in the 90th minute or injury time, whatever it was, and then managed to hit it wide.
Yeah.
Do you remember that game?
Yeah, I do remember the game. I remember all the games against Notts County, some for good reasons, like just seeing the crowd, the Mansfield fans, it was unbelievable. Like, such a good feeling.
It used to take 4,000.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. The attendances for the away games were absolutely brilliant when we played Notts County. So yeah, I remember every Notts County game for good reasons, and unfortunately I had my worst injury playing against Notts County as well at Meadow Lane. So so yeah, I've got mixed feelings, but Koki, really good friend of mine. We were like, he lived with me, to be honest. He lived in my house when I did move to Mansfield. We were really close on the pitch, off the pitch. We used to bicker like brothers. It helped us on the pitch because, again, he's somebody that complimented me. He just loved going forward. He loved attacking, and
he's very skillful.
Very skillful. And I sort of loved the defensive-minded side of being a midfielder. So yeah, really good guy again, Koki, and we gelled. We just gelled off the pitch, on the pitch, and he's another one who, despite having a bad injury himself, he managed to progress and play a decent level of football. Yeah,
it makes you wonder, like, back then most teams played 4-4-2, certainly at Stags level. If you'd have played the formations we play now, where one sits and the two in front of you, you'd have thought yourself, Dawson and Coke would have been fantastic, but it wasn't really the thing then, was it? It was 4-4-2.
It was 4-4-2, right? I think every single game I played for Mansfield Town was 4-4-2. And now even the sort of, I've managed myself at a lower level, we don't play 4-4-2.
No one
does.
It's
so rare to see a team play 4-4-2, and as you said, maybe that's what let us down. Maybe we had the players, but they weren't quite in the right positions. Because as you said, if I was sitting, if we had Dawson, Koki in front of us, Richie Barker as a central striker, and then we had some good wide players at a time, Matt Hanshaw, for example, like. We could have done something.
It wasn't a thing, though, was it?
No,
we played 4-4-2, and every other team played 4-4-2.
Yeah,
the odd one who played 5 at the back, if they were a bit rubbish, but generally it was 4.
It was, and it's just a case of, right, you're 4-4-2, they're 4-4-2, do better than your man.
Run at each other.
Run at each other. Whichever team wins the most individual duels will win the game. There was a sort of tactical lack of awareness, so to speak, and it'd be interesting to see what would happen if we just went back and changed formations.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? But I did like him because a player.
Good player.
Another player I was going to talk about. This is the shirt from the season before you joined, so it's not one you wore. But it's this man's shirt, Alex Baptiste.
Yeah, what a guy.
What was he like to play with? Because for me, he was a phenomenal defender, one of the best I've seen.
I agree, and he proved that. Played at Premiership level. His pace, his determination. For a centre back, he wasn't very big. Even when we did gym work, he wouldn't lift that much in the gym. He just looked a little bit weak, but he wasn't. He was so determined. And then when he got the ball, when he started driving forward with it, you couldn't get it off him. He probably went at the right time. Actually, he left. He left obviously before I left, but he had teams interested in him, and he made the right move, and his career just took on, and And again, another person, and I'll keep saying it, was a really nice guy at the time, both on and off the pitch. He's somebody, when I moved to Mansfield, he made me feel welcome. He used to take me out around the town, show me places, and yeah, he was just a nice, welcoming guy, and he's someone who like deserves every bit of success that he's had really, and yeah, really, really nice person to be around.
So another player we talked about, other than Alex Baptiste on that side, was this man, Jake Buxton. Now this shirt, I'm unsure whether it was match worn because a lot of the time they had patches on, but I don't know if you remember in the programme, Mr. Buxton did a bit of commercial activity with a golf course, and all the pictures of him on the golf course were wearing this shirt with no patches on, long sleeve. So how good was Jake? Because there was another local defender.
Yeah, he was as a sort of, if you look at the qualities of a defender, other than pace, he had it all. He was great in the air. He was strong in the tackle. For a young lad, he was a leader as well, actually. I think he learnt a lot from Richie Barker, to be honest with you. So he had everything but pace, but he very, very rarely got caught out with his pace. He was sort of like Baresi in terms of his ability to read the game and ability to drop when he needed to drop. So he wasn't caught out in behind and push up when he could push up. He's somebody who I'd hate to play against. He's just a nasty defender. He wouldn't give you a minute. Good on both feet. I remember at times he filled in at left back because the quality on his left foot was just as good as his right. He could play full back. I know at times when we had Baptiste and Hjelde as the two centre backs, sometimes Bucko would play at full back. And again, he's just, as a person, he's just someone else who made me feel welcome. He actually helped me buy my first house. He took me around different areas. Yeah, he did. He did seem to take me just around close to where he lived. I think he wanted me to be close. Did he, by any chance? Yeah. So Bucko was good. He was another one who helped me settle in. But as a player, yeah, really, really good. And again, if you just look what he went on to do after he left Mansfield, it just makes you think. Again, we underachieved. Yeah. We did underachieve as a group of players. Because he did really, really well for himself at Burton and at Derby. And he's somebody who again I still keep in touch with every now and again. And when I do see him, it hit me like this evening. We just reflect on the old times, like with happy memories.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So ultimately, that season we finished 16th. This is the away shirt from the season. Do you remember this one?
I do.
That's my kids' one.
I like it. I like all the away shirts, to be honest. Obviously, I know we've got the traditional amber and blue colours of the home shirts, but I thought the away kits were quite nice, to be honest. Yeah, I do remember this one fondly. Away record probably wasn't great that season, but I still enjoyed wearing the shirts. Yeah,
we finished 16th. At times we threatened to finish a bit lower, and then we also threatened to finish a bit higher. Was that about where we deserved to be at the end of the season?
I probably think so. As you said, I remember once getting up to about 12th or something.
Yeah, we were not far off the playoffs at one point.
And then a couple of bad results, and then you slip back down again. So I do think with the naivety of the squad, yeah, it probably was about right. But we finished that season with genuine optimism for the next season. We were thinking, you know what, with a few additions, as players, we thought we were good enough to mount a playoff challenge. I know it didn't pan out that way, but we sort of did think we can do this here. We can do something special.
So then, the next season changed to Carlotti. If you remember that shirt.
Yes, I do.
And that man himself, Simon Brown, he's cut the collar there on that one.
Yeah.
Do you remember Simon?
I do. Sick note, really good player. Struggled a bit with injuries. He had a bad hernia, and I think we sort of nursed it for a while by just keeping him on the bench and then bringing him on for half an hour, 40 minutes, and he just terrorised defences.
He was quick, wasn't he?
He was very quick, and he knew where the net was. He was nasty for quite a small guy. He had a real nastiness about him. But yeah, he sort of fitted in with the rest of the sort of young nucleus of the squad. I think he was a year older than me, so 21 at the time.
Yeah.
But he was a good player. He was someone who I know Mansfield signed from West Brom, and he had a good pedigree, a good reputation at West Brom. And like myself, his goal was to do well with Mansfield and then get himself a move higher up the leagues.
Yeah.
And didn't quite happen for him, but I know he enjoyed his time at Mansfield as well. He enjoyed the fans, he enjoyed the atmosphere, and he loved scoring goals. He was very, very selfish in that way. He just wanted to score. But together with Richie Barker, those two, they did make a good combination. Richie sort of had the strength and the aerial ability, and Brownie could just run in behind and get on the end of things, and more often than not, at least hit the target.
Seemed a nice guy as well. He donated that shirt, so I got in contact with him, and he donated that shirt. He posted it for free, everything, sent it. So yeah, it seems like he was a really nice guy.
He was a really nice guy. I actually came across him in non-league football as well. We both had a spell at Eastwood Town together, and again, he was just a nice guy there, really nice guy, just wanting to play football and just wanting to improve himself.
This is your shirt that you brought along from the scene. This one's one of yours, signed by the squad again. Do you remember this one?
I do remember it. I think, I might be wrong here, I think the first game of this season, I think we played possibly Shrewsbury away. And yeah, I do remember the shirt. It was quite modern compared to the one the previous season.
The Garmin one was a bit thick, wasn't it? The material was quite thick and heavy.
Yeah, I do remember. I think we drew one all the way at Shrewsbury, and I think Matt Hamshaw scored. But yeah, I remember this season. I remember the shirt, and it's crazy how shirts bring back memories. Just looking at the shirt, I think about certain games from that era. Again, it was a time when I thought we would do really well, and we had new players join us, the likes of Martin Gritton and Barry Conlon, people like that. And we thought, you know what, these sort of experienced guys with us young lads are gonna really push us on. But yeah, it wasn't to be in terms of the plan of getting in the playoffs and things, but again, we gave it a good go, and we were a group of lads that really got on with each other. We really enjoyed things. It was just a shame that we didn't get the results that we wanted.
Was the number 4 your choice or top choice? Or?
Yeah, it was my choice. Again, it's from my Arsenal connection. When I did love Ian Wright as a player, but when Ian Wright left Arsenal, Patrick Vieira was my man. He was my man. He was number 4.
He weren't bad, was he?
No, he wasn't bad at all. And I actually, although I didn't quite manage it, I was a striker. I was a striker up until the age of 15. And then when I sort of reverted to midfield, I'd watch Vieira. I'd watch Patrick Vieira and Claude Makelele, both number 4s, so it was definitely number 4 for me when I had the chance to get it.
So that season, we sort of had a bit of a sticky start, and Shirtlift departed in the December, and initially I think Paul Holland had one game, then Billy Dearden took charge. I assume you were disappointed with Shirtlift leaving, as at the time he brought you to the club in the first place.
He brought me to the club. I remember ringing him after he told us he'd lost his job, and I was gutted for him. I didn't know where my head was at personally, because he did bring me to the club, but obviously I signed a contract to the club. I enjoyed my time at the club, and I thought, yeah, I'll stay and I'll give it a go. And I'll be honest with you, it was the best decision I made, because Billy Dearden was such a nice guy.
Was he? I've never met him, but obviously he's had a few spells, one as assistant, very successfully, then again successfully as a manager, and then again the second time. Yeah,
really loved my time with him. He showed a lot of faith in me straight away, and he actually tried to get me moves to other clubs, because he recognised my potential. I know he'd speak to other managers. I had Peter Jackson, I think, was the manager of Huddersfield at the time. They came to watch me play. We played Torquay on a night game. We won 5-0. Martin Gritton got a hat-trick, and I remember after that, Peter Jackson rang my agent at the time and said, just tell him to keep going, and we'll be coming in for him soon. And then unfortunately, not long after that, I got injured playing away against Notts County, which kept me out for, I think, nearly a year. But yeah, that season, I was really enjoying my football. Obviously disappointed for Peter Shirtlift, but when Billy Dearden came in, he showed faith in me, and I loved it. I just loved playing. I loved playing for him. Such a nice guy. Sort of like a granddad figure. Yeah, not just because of his age, but nobody wanted to disappoint him. So you would run that extra bit just to see Billy happy. And even if we lost, he'd be disappointed, but it wouldn't be a real telling off, getting in your face. It'd be like, look lads, we need to do better. And
that's worse when people are disappointed, isn't it? I'd rather somebody be angry than disappointed.
I completely understand that, but you just wanted to do it for him as well as everyone else. So I was really happy that he was brought to the club.
So that same season, it's a shirt I've recently acquired actually, is the goalkeeper shirt, same season. Do you remember this man?
I do remember. A
couple of spells at the Stags.
Yeah, Carl Muggleton. He sort of shared the goalkeeping role with Jason White at the time. Jason's good friend of mine. I still speak to Jason quite a lot. But Carl, again, with his experience, he added that experience to us. he would make the odd mistake, but he's a goalkeeper at the end of the day, and at times, especially whilst I was at Mansfield, some of our goalkeepers did have a habit of sometimes doing that, but it is still, I would say, it's the hardest position on the pitch. I would make 10 to 20 mistakes in a game, and they wouldn't cost. The goalkeeper makes one, and it's a goal.
One, can they? That's the
no, thing. So I would never, ever be overcritical of a goalkeeper, because to get that level of consistency where you're just making one mistake a game or no mistakes a game, it's unbelievable. I couldn't do it as an outfield player, so all credit to them. But yeah, Carl was a nice guy. He just added that experience, that maturity, that ability to calm us all down. He would slow the game down when we needed him to, like he'd go down injured, or he'd just take about an age just to pick the ball up, and he'd just say to the ref, "Oh, it is my age. I'll just get it as quick as I can." So yeah, he was a nice guy, Carl, and as I said, he's somebody that added value to the whole squad.
I don't know if you remember the away shirt. This is not a match one. I love this one. I haven't got a match one, so if anyone out there's got one, please let me know. I think of Matt Hamshaw on that shirt. Don't know why. No idea why, but you know that there's a lot of memories in that shirt. I like that shirt.
Yeah, I actually think Giles Coke has got my version of this shirt.
Oh, that's it. I know somebody's got a match one. I'm sure it's Hamshaw he's got. Maybe that's why I think of him. But I've not seen any others.
No, it was a nice shirt. I don't think we wore it enough. I really don't.
No,
think
we only wore it a handful of times.
A lovely shirt, really, but we didn't wear it enough. But again, it just brings back good memories. Brings back memories of like good performances and even some bad performances. But yeah, really, really nice shirt. I think this season, the design of the shirts, I sort of a little bit more in line with your modern
they are more
modern shirts. Yeah. So yeah, really, really
so
like
it. It's got like the mesh on the back.
It has
shirts at that time. Just didn't have, did they? They were awful to wear. So I assume some of these.
Yeah, they were. And just when you try on the shirts now, even just buying them as fans, you think, God, I wish I would have played in these type of shirts. Yeah, but this was a good one. This was definitely one of the better ones.
So we threatened the playoffs that season. Yeah. We got to around about 11th at one point. But eventually, towards the end, we only won one of the last 10. When you're on sort of that run, one, do you remember it? And two, do you feel like as a player that it's just become a habit and you can't get out of it? You just need that one.
It was
result to stop it.
It was frustrating for me because I'm pretty certain this is the season I got injured. So the last 10 games of the season I wouldn't have played anyway. But I was coming to the game. I was there with the lads. I was supporting them, and the feeling was we're putting in all this effort and nothing's happening. No. Literally nothing was happening to us. It wasn't just myself who got injured. We had other players in and out of the team through injury, and when you have a young squad and not a massive squad, it does make a difference. It does make a difference if you just lose a few of your more key, more experienced players. And although I was young, I was starting every game, so I would have probably classed myself as a key player and played in that. I was probably the only one there who could do the holding role, because even Stephen Dawson, when he was in there, he wanted to get forward. So I know when I was injured, we did try Stephen Dawson and Giles Coke in there, but they would just vacate the midfield too often. They were both
too open.
Too open. They'd be too eager to get forward. But yeah, it does feel like you're stuck in a rut when you go through losing spells and games where you're not winning. You just want the season to end. You really do just want the season to end and then hopefully kick on the following year.
So this is the season 2007-08. This is the home shirt. Did you have any indication at the start of the season on what might be to come that season?
No.
Or was that couldn't have been further from your thoughts at the time?
Couldn't have been further from my thoughts. The pre-season for me was difficult actually, because I'd had one ankle operation and we thought, you know what, we've cracked it, I can get running again. And I started running in pre-season and it just wasn't right. My ankle just wasn't right. So from a personal level, I knew I needed another op. So I actually had a second operation just in pre-season. But we signed some good players, including this guy, Martin McIntosh. He had a wealth of experience and good leader, great left foot. I remember scoring some free kicks. And as a centre-back, you don't really see that. Yeah, you don't see that often at all. And even still, even knowing that I was injured and only managed to play, I don't know, the last 4 months of the season or whatever, I still thought we'd have enough. Not just to survive, to like finish mid-table. So yeah, that's my toughest moment in football really, was when you sort of realise you know what, this might actually happen. And it was even more frustrating for me because, as I said, I did make my comeback in that season, but I still didn't feel like the player I was, and I didn't feel fully fit. And it was only probably a year after that I actually got my full fitness and full strength in my ankle. It was just a really, really difficult injury to go through personally.
Must be quite frustrating because when you're playing, you can't tell the fans, because sometimes we'll sit in the stand and go, well, he's not playing very well today.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't. The clubs aren't very good, I think, sometimes of explaining to the fans that, look, he's playing, but he's playing with an injury.
Yeah.
You'll hear about it when it's either too late and they've snapped something and they're out for 6 months.
Yeah.
Or you'll hear about it when they've left, or at the end of the season, or, you know, it must be frustrating as a player, knowing that you're not fully at it, but no one else knows that you're not fully at it. You know, other maybe your teammates, but you know it, but the fans don't, and everyone's watching thinking, oh, the team's not playing very well. When,
you're right. You're 100% right there. Like, I know I did it. I remember other players doing it. Like, you're getting through games on painkillers, literally on painkillers, and even with that, you're still not playing to your full capacity. But with the sort of position that we were in, I know the manager just wanted me back as soon as possible, and I wanted to be back as soon as possible. So you like come back when you're not ready, and then you're right, it affects your performance. I know I wasn't playing as well as I was pre-injury, and it is just down to the fact that I'm sort of still injured, but you just try and you just want to be on the pitch. You do want to make the fans happy, but you're sort of doing the wrong thing. You're making them unhappy because you're just playing when you're not quite ready to.
Yeah, that shirt there was the home one. The away one, now the away one didn't have a sponsor for the start of the season. If you remember this one, this is your shirt. So thank you very much for bringing this in.
No problem.
The first game, can you remember the first game that we had the sponsor on?
Was it Harrogate away?
It was Harrogate Railway.
Yeah,
it was on the telly.
Yeah.
I didn't go because I think I was either playing or refereeing at the time. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I didn't go. But I remember the weather was horrific.
Yeah.
When you watch the footage back now, so that was the first game of that new sponsor. Everyone was ditched. Yeah. Everyone was wet through. What was that like?
It was horrendous. Again, I'd only just come back from injury, and I was on the bench for that game. And it was one of them where I wasn't bothered if I didn't come on. I really wasn't. I think the game only stayed on because it was on. It was televised. Yeah. It was televised. I think other times the game would have been called off because of the pitch. And do you know what? It was actually a really, really good result for us. I can't remember. I think it was 3-1.
Was it 3-2? 3-2. Yeah, they scored from, I think, some free kicks and corners where they just flicked it in and headed it in.
Yeah, but to come away from that fixture winning the game, it was a great achievement. Just because it was on TV because people expected an upset, and we didn't. I remember thinking that the game was comfortable up until like some latter moment. So
it was, yeah.
Yeah. So
Mickey Baldwin scored as well for the
yeah. Mickey is another good lad. So yeah, I do remember the game. I do remember this shirt. I like the shirt, and I just remember being sponsored by these and getting a load of free FIFA games.
I was going to say, did you get that?
Yeah, it was really good, and it was nice for the lads just to get some form of material reward for doing well in the cup, and yeah, we got the sponsorship, and as I said, we got some free games with it as well.
Did you ever play as yourself? Video games, you must have done.
I
know I was.
Yeah, I did. I was more a Football Manager guy rather than the FIFAs, but yeah, I did play myself. Sometimes I questioned the stats that I was given, thinking, I'm sure I'm a little bit quicker than that, or I'm sure I'm a bit stronger than that, but... I'm
sure you were like a 57 one year on FIFA. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, I know what is going on.
It looked nothing like you either.
Yeah, I know, it literally could have been anyone, so... But yeah, that's one of the sort of novelty and fun things about having played professional football, getting the chance to play as yourself as on a game.
Yeah, when your little one grows up as well, she can go back on the old ones and say,
got some of the ones. I don't know if the console still works though, but yeah, I've still got some old games ready for her to see.
So obviously in that FA Cup that same season, you very kindly brought in this shirt, which is the Middlesbrough game.
Yeah.
What was the build up like to that? Can you remember much about it?
I can. It was lovely. It was lovely, to be fair. We had a lot of press come. I remember we had the FA Cup brought to the stadium. I remember doing an interview in the Sun actually. I was like on the pull out. I was on the front of the pull out. It was lovely, and again the game was picked for TV because I think they thought, you know what, if Mansfield are on it, then they could spring an upset.
Could have happened though, couldn't it?
It could have, yeah. I don't think we disgraced ourselves.
No, definitely not.
Middlesbrough will probably say that they were comfortable, but yeah, the scoreline didn't show a massive dominance. And yeah, I wanted to get somebody's shirt, and then I remember seeing Rochenbach, and I know he played for Brazil. I know he was at Barcelona, and I thought, do you know what? Even though he wasn't that good at Middlesbrough, I'll just get his shirt. And yeah, it's one that I really cherish. One of my friends at Man City's got me a Gilberto Silva shirt from when he played against Arsenal in the Premiership, and this like another Brazilian player. The Gilberto one's framed on my wall, but this one, I think it's just more for who he was rather than anything else.
Did you swap shirts in any other game, or?
Not for Mansfield. I think it was more a case of Mez at the time, who I know his groundsman wouldn't let us. He wouldn't let us get rid of any shirts. You're like, oh, he'd moan at us. But yeah,
we're on a bit of a budget then, I think.
Yeah, on a bit of a budget. But again, people like Mez, if I can just mention him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
People like him in the background of the club. For me, he's a legend. He's an absolute legend. He was kit man, groundsman. Like, he'd do anything for you. So if there's anything ever I can do for him or his family, I will try and do it. He's such a nice
He still
guy.
Does. He's still there. He's still plugging away, and his lad, obviously Scott as well. The team there do a brilliant job.
Yeah, they do.
I think they got very unfortunate with the pitch this season with the Wrexham game absolutely ruining it.
Exactly.
Which again, probably another case of should it have been on if it wasn't on the telly.
Well, it shouldn't have.
Another case of that.
It shouldn't have, and then again, I know they've. I suppose a minority of people will say, "Oh, the pitch isn't good enough," and it's just a case of, in the nicest possible way, does everybody understand what goes on?
No one has a clue, do they?
No,
if they saw it every day, if you had a GoPro on, people would go, "Oh
exactly.
Yeah, I get it."
If they see the work that those guys are doing, they do a brilliant job, and they're just again, they're part of the reason that I'm still in Mansfield. Like the club, the people at the club attracted me to the town, and I'm still here. I'm still really happy.
I'm hoping to get Mez on.
Oh, that'd be
so great. He said yes. So Mez, if you're listening,
get yourself on.
As we sort of move towards the latter end of the season, we signed this man on loan. I've got his home and away shirt here.
Briggs
Keith Briggs. Do you remember much of him joining on loan?
Yeah, I do. I know he had a bit of time at Stockport, which again is close to Manchester. So I knew who he was, and he played at a good level. And I think he initially came to play fullback for us, but ended up playing a lot in midfield. Again, I was injured, coming back from injury, and we needed somebody else in there. I know there was him, and Lee Bell was there as well. But Briggsy, was someone. I think we went through a period of signing experienced players, and we did need them. We did need players to steady the ship. And Briggsy was a positive influence. He was a tough tackler, good on the ball, and he knew how to motivate players. And at the time, I think we really did need that.
So I've got another version of the away shirt there. Were you a long or short sleeve man? Predominantly, I've seen all your shirts generally short sleeve. You ever wear long sleeves?
To be honest, again with Mez, I just got what I was given. I think my preference would have been short sleeve though. Yeah, definitely.
You're not a long sleeve man.
No, not a long sleeve man. I know now some players like wear the skins under short sleeve. No, I'd rather wear short sleeve, and it just motivated me to run around a little bit more and get warmer. Yeah. So no, my preference was definitely long sleeve. Especially some of the older shirts were really baggy, and I didn't want a baggy long sleeve when I'm running around. I think if I did wear long sleeve, I'd roll it up often.
Especially if they're wet, when they get wet.
Yeah. My thinking is, and I remember at one point Arsenal had this thing. The captain chose what they do. If the captain was going long sleeve, everyone would be long sleeve. But yeah, I don't know. I think whatever makes people feel comfortable these days. They are very pampered and protected players, so I think these days they have choice of whatever they want, really, don't they? But yeah, my preference was definitely short.
So in the March of that season, Billy Dearden was then sacked and replaced with Paul Holland. Did you believe at the time? I know you were injured for a portion of that sort of time, but did you at that time think you could still get out of it?
Yeah.
We were never adrift really of anybody. It just sort of slowly tapered out. But at that point in March, obviously sad to see Billy go.
I was. You could see it coming, and through no fault of his own, I do think as players we had to take responsibility. Like, we were underperforming, and regardless of injuries and things, we were losing games that we shouldn't have lost. And ultimately the manager takes the rap of it. They don't sack the players. The players are on contracts, quite comfortable on the contracts, and it's the manager who takes the rap. I think the decision was made to try and get a sort of immediate reaction and an upturn in fortunes. And I think, although we didn't go on a big winning run with Paul Holland, there was a little bit of an upbeatness. I remember we played Hereford at home in one of his early games, and they were fighting for promotion, and I think we only lost 1-0. Like, we did really, really well, and even though we lost that game, I think there was genuine optimism that actually we can get out of this. And I think it was only up until a couple of weeks, before the end of the season that our fate was sort of sealed. I remember a game at home against Rotherham, and they beat us 1-0.
That was the game. Was that the halfway line goal?
Yeah, the guy who scored it, actually, I went on to play with for years. I still speak to him now, Jamie Yates.
Right, yeah, Jamie.
Yeah, I played with him at Gainsborough and a few other sides, and that game sort of felt like the one that got us relegated, although it didn't actually mathematically. It just felt like it. But yeah, it was a really disappointing end to the season, and genuinely, like, for any of the fans that are listening to this, like, the players, they're disappointed for themselves, but they're disappointed for the fans more than anything, because at the end of the day, as players, we probably will go on to play football, whether it's for Mansfield or somebody else, but the fans at the end of the day are now supporting a team in the conference. So there is genuine hurt and upset for the fans. Like, it isn't just a case of, we're gutted as players, we are gutted for the fans as well.
That Rotherham game, actually, funnily, I was looking through some pictures. I didn't realise Graham Coughlin was their captain.
Oh, no.
No, obviously ex-Mansfield player. I was looking through the photos and I went, that looks like Graham Coughlin. And he was the captain that day in the Rotherham game, which was interesting.
No.
And the Dagenham game, I can't remember whether you played the Dagenham game. I don't think you did you?
No, I didn't.
I went to that.
I didn't. No,
we had an early sending off. Booker got sent off, and that just that game summed up. It was 3-1 we lost.
Yeah.
That just summed up our season.
I think actually, within the camp, I think the fate was already sealed, because I remember
we already down at that point.
Paul Holland said to me before the game, look, JD, we're not going to start yet. I'm just going to play some of the lads who we need to make a decision on for next season. And I didn't play in the game at all. It was a really, as you said, the way the game panned out was a really poor game. So it was one of them where I'm happy I didn't come on. But it was disappointing. But again, as players, we just think, right, what can we do to try and get us back up into the Football League? Not everybody stayed. Some of the players who had better seasons managed to get themselves moves. I remember Johnny Mullins, Stephen Dawson, players like that. They were too good to be playing in the conference. I put myself in that bracket, but with my injury, I hadn't played a full season. I hadn't been able to get back to my best. So for me, staying in the conference was not an issue. Was not an issue to me at all.
Did you have any options?
I did. It was. I could have gone to Macclesfield, who was still in League Two at the time, but you have to. What some people don't realise is, as a footballer, it is a job as well, and the financial package that Macclesfield were offering me, it wasn't good enough for me to leave Mansfield, and it just wasn't worth it. So I was more than happy to stay at Mansfield, where I had a house and everything, and I was settling. I was happy to just stay there and hopefully try and get the club back into the Football League.
So we move into the National League, the conference, the Blue Square Premier Years. This was the first shirt that we had. We changed to Canterbury from Carlotti, and again back to the heavy, cumbersome material a little bit compared to the Carlotti shirts, which were, like you say, always a little bit lighter. Do you remember starting the season in this one?
I do remember starting the season in this. I think Billy McEwen had come in into at the helm at the time. Unusual bloke. I know he's sadly not with us anymore. Very, very adamant on players working hard. I've never, apart from when I was a young player at Manchester City, done double sessions before, but he would have us in morning and afternoon, and we'd warm up for about an hour. It was crazy. He just had a huge emphasis on players warming up properly, and I think it's because he was the most flexible guy in the world, and he just wanted to show us how well he could stretch. Well, it seemed it. But yeah, very unusual guy. But again, he's somebody who showed a lot of faith in me, actually. He played me all the time. His footballing philosophy at times was a bit mixed. Sometimes he'd want us to just boot the ball forward. Other times he would encourage us to try and play. And we started off the season quite well, actually. We did pick up some good results. And I remember at one point we were top of the league. But then it just petered out. We had like Mark Stallard and
Jason Lee.
Jason Lee, Adi Moses. I even remember scoring a couple of goals that season, which for me is unusual.
Moses was captain, wasn't he?
Adi Moses, good guy, really good guy.
Scott Garner, there was a few others.
Scott Garner, so we did have a good group, but I think maybe we underestimated the National League.
Yeah.
I think we thought, especially how we started, I think we thought, you know what, we might just breeze this league. And after 10 games or so, we soon figured out that teams are going to want to come to Field Mill, as it was called then, and put on a good performance. And I think at times we did struggle at home because people were coming to a nice stadium.
On the bus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I do remember the season well. I do remember the players well. And Billy McEwen, I know he didn't last too long as manager, but I did enjoy his time again as well.
Yeah, and a few months into that season, you were called up for the England C team.
Yeah,
which must have been a fantastic honour for you. I've got your 2 shirts here.
Yeah.
I don't know which game which is from. That one was the Bosnia one first.
Bosnia one was first.
Yeah, so that's that one.
Bosnia one was
incredible
first.
things to have, an incredible thing to say in your career that you've been called up. Where did you hear about the call up?
I got the club had been contacted. I don't know if it was via phone or email or something, to say that myself and Nathan Arnold had been selected for England C. And I will be honest, I'd never heard of England C. I didn't know what it was. So I did some quick research, and it was essentially the England of non-league, and you had to be under 24, or you could have a few that were 25. And I know the manager was the old Barnet manager. I've forgotten his name now. But yeah, so he'd obviously seen me play quite a lot.
Paul Fairclough.
Yeah. He's seen me play a lot when we were playing against Barnet in the Football League, and he knew myself and Nathan Arnold really well. And all I could say is they treat you like you are actually playing for England.
Right, okay.
You get proper caps. You get picked up from your house in like really posh cars, chauffeured to the airport, stay in really, really nice hotels, like everything's first class. It was such a really, really good experience. This Bosnia game, we actually played against their under-23 side, so theirs wasn't non-league, it was just their under-23 side, and they battered us. I think it was 6-2 in the end, but it just showed the difference in sort of levels, really, because it was like if England under-23s had played against them, like it'd just be a different game altogether. But it was such a really, really good experience, and I was fortunate to get the opportunity to go again to Italy.
So in the Bosnia game, obviously you finished that one, and there was an interesting flight home.
Yeah, never been so scared in my life. We were on the way back in, and then as we were approaching the airport, and the pilot sort of releases the landing gear and the wheels, he released them, and then instead of going down, we flew straight back up really, really sharply. And then we were circling for about half an hour, and we're thinking, what's going on here? And the pilot said, it's appearing that the landing gear isn't locking into place. Yeah. So on his camera, the wheels were down, but they weren't locking into place. Okay. So if we would have landed, the wheels would have just gone flat. So the decision was made that we were going to land anyway. Yeah. And the reason why we were circling in the air for so long was so that ambulance and fire brigade could be on the runway.
That's comforting.
Yeah, I know. And
lose a bit of fuel as well.
Yeah, and when you sort of, when he decided, you know what, we need to go for it, but as you are approaching the runway, you can see a big line of fire brigade, ambulance and everything. And I'll be honest with you, it was actually the smoothest landing I've ever been on.
Really?
Yeah, it was fine. It was just a fault with the indicator to say that it had released properly. But yeah, it was. I was saying prayers.
So scared in your life.
I was everything, and there was a lad actually. He ended up signing for Mansfield, I think. Exodus.
Yeah.
I sat next to him on the plane, and he was so relaxed and laid back, and he was like, "What are you worrying for?" And I was like, "Well, they've said to us our plane could possibly crash." But yeah, Big X, he was just so chilled and laid back. And then when it landed, he was like, "Yeah, I told you." I think deep down there must have been an element of him that was fearful as well, because I'll be honest, I genuinely thought this could be it. Because when they tell you that the landing gear might not stay up, you just fear the worst. Everybody feared the worst. And
not what you want to hear.
No, there was a huge round of applause when we actually did land. So yeah, that was a scary experience.
And then your second game was against Italy, Italy C in the November the same year, and then you got the shirt again.
Yeah.
8, was that given for you, number 8? Was that given to you?
Yeah,
Again?
do you know what? I didn't pick it, but it's quite a nice one.
It's quite nice, that England number 8.
Yeah, I know. 4 again is my preference, but number 8 was good. It's a strange one because I do remember every player I played with, like at club level, but for these 2 England games, it's I have to look back at the squads to remember some of the lads. There's a few key ones who I remember. The late Mitchell Cole. He was really, really good player. He seemed to play a lot of the games for England C, and a few others, like I said, Richard Brodie. But
John Brayford was one.
Yeah, John Brayford. I forgot I played with him.
Luke Foster of Mansfield fame.
Luke Foster, I remember Luke Foster. And
Sean Harrod,
yeah. But apart from that, I can't really remember too many of them, which for me is really, really unusual. But I think you're more overwhelmed by the whole experience. And as I said, you're treated how I think the England players would be treated. You get everything. Everything is provided for you, like no expenses like spared at all. And it's just a brilliant experience for everyone involved.
Was it Benevento, wasn't it? Was it Benevento
that? Yeah, it was.
I'd looked at.
I think we drew that game
2-2.
Yeah, we drew 2-2 in that game. So they were good. That was their C team, so they're equivalent to us. But technically, I suppose like a lot of the foreign teams, they just seem to have a technical edge over us, and they did in that game. We sort of had the physical edge, but technically they were probably a step above.
So then you come back to Mansfield and play it like Histon.
Yeah,
the
Histon
dripping
away,
pan the following week or something like that.
Yeah.
I've also got your away shirt from that season. No, I haven't. That's that one.
Yeah.
That's the away shirt from this season.
Yeah.
From that season.
Yeah. Scored a goal in this one.
You did, and you captained the side in this one.
Yes, I did. David Holsworth was the manager.
He was. How did you feel when you got given the captaincy then from David? Because he came in and instantly pretty much said,
he
captain.
It was a tough one because Aidy Moses was the captain, and I really respected him as the captain. But David Holsworth, he just pulled Aidy in and said, "I'm going to make John the captain because he's going to be with me next season." And which immediately gets Aidy thinking, well, am I not? Yeah, exactly.
It's a strange way of doing it.
It is a strange way of doing it. And he gave me the captain's armband. He gave me a new contract straight away. And I would say initially my relationship with David Holsworth was very positive.
Yeah.
I've never had a manager that was so critical of my own performance. It did feel, and without sounding bitter, that at times he did have a vendetta against me. Like, I remember playing one game, and I would say that I'm very honest in my assessment of my own performance. And I remember we played Wrexham away. We didn't win. I know we lost the game, and I was nowhere near the worst player on the pitch. But I was singled out in the dressing room as the worst player on the pitch, and I think for me, that's when my happiness in terms of on the pitch happiness at Mansfield, it started to decline. I did finish that season with Mansfield, but in the back of my head I was thinking, is playing under this manager the right thing for me? We had a massive turnover of players, like in every single position.
He had more players than any manager I've ever known.
Yeah, it was crazy. So it felt like if you had a bad game one week, it's not that you'd be on the bench the next week, you wouldn't even be in the squad. There'd be somebody else coming in. I think we had about 8 or 9 central midfielders.
Yeah.
And it was just strange because it instilled his faith in me as captain, gave me a new contract, and then I soon found myself not involved at all. And I'd say the only time at Mansfield Town when I wasn't even involved was when I was injured before that. And now I was fully fit, my ankle was fine, and I'm finding myself like in the stands. And yeah, football is a job. Football does pay the bills, but I also want some happiness from it. I want to be playing football, and towards the end of my time at Mansfield, I wasn't happy. And I was actively seeking opportunities just to try and get out there and play.
The funniest thing, I think, when I was looking back and just making sure I got some of my facts right, there was 2 articles I saw from David Holsworth that he'd done with BBC Sport. The one in January was saying that you were captain and you were going to play next season, all this lot. And then there's the same, obviously the same season. It was, I think it was maybe the July or August, saying that basically that you weren't really needed, but you might be needed a little bit, but maybe not. And I was thinking, those articles were only 6-7 months apart. I thought that is just, has anyone had a swing of opinion from one manager from being taking the captain off somebody quite experienced and going, I've got my faith, he's still young, captain, And within 6 months, it's like, I'm not really that bothered.
Yeah, I know.
Bizarre.
It was bizarre, and yeah, again, I don't mean to sound bitter, but I wasn't a fan of his managerial, his methods. Like, everybody's got their own methods, so his methods might have worked at other teams. I know he had success at Ilkeston before he came to Mansfield, and that might have worked. But for me, I felt there was an element of dishonesty, and maybe that dishonesty came by making me captain and giving me a new contract. Maybe he felt it was something that he had to do. I would have rather the honesty come straight away and said, do you know what, John, maybe you're not the player for me. And I would have thought, yeah, fine, fair enough. But it was almost like I was led on a little bit, so to speak. So yeah, it was tough, because Mansfield Town Football Club definitely has my heart, but I wanted to leave. I was unhappy. I wanted to leave.
And on that same season, do you remember playing with this guy?
I do. For me, it was like a bulldozer, Louis Briscoe. He'd get the ball down, and he'd just run. And if you're in his way, he'd just run past you. And he did have quality at the end of it. I know he scored some good goals, and he's another one who technically probably wasn't the best, but his sheer determination and his desire and his will to win and will to get past people was really good. And I think that sort of came from his non-league background, actually. I know he had a spell at Ilkeston, and that sort of, you need to be tough. I played in the lower leagues myself, even below conference national level, and yeah, you need that determination. He had it in abundance, and when he just added that quality to his game, he was a really, really good player for Mansfield, in my opinion.
So when you left that season, at the end of that season, did you have any other offers? Because you went to Northwich.
I went to Northwich.
What was the reason thinking about that first one?
It was close to Manchester, and I could stay in Manchester, and the assistant, the manager was Andy Priest, who had a good career, but the assistant was Andy Morrison, who was someone who I loved at Manchester City. He was a no-nonsense centre-back, and he just rang me and said, look, like, we're not saying that you're going to sign for us, but we noticed that you're not playing. We know a lot about you from your time at City as well as Mansfield. Can you come and do us a job? And I loved it. Absolutely loved it there. Like, we
played a lot of games there, didn't you?
Played a lot of games, yeah. We had a brilliant FA Cup run. Like, we beat Charlton, who were top of League One at the time. We beat them 1-0. And then we played Lincoln in the next round of the FA Cup. And we had some really good players who could have played higher. And again, it was just that young environment, young players, all hungry, all willing to do well, which was really, really good and beneficial to us.
So, John, you ended up spending over 150 appearances at Mansfield, which is an incredible achievement.
Yeah.
How would you sum up your time at Mansfield?
I think that the thing that I could say to sum it up is that I'm still here. I am still in Mansfield, and I don't just think about my time on the pitch. My time on the pitch up until, I don't know, the last month or so, I really did love it. Even the season we got relegated, I felt welcomed by the fans, welcomed by the players, by the people in the town, and it's where my most extensive football memories come from. Yeah, I was at Man City for 11 years, but that was youth football, that was academy football. So Mansfield for me has shaped my sort of footballing life, and I have loved every minute of it. I've loved the opportunity that I had to play. And again, it is the people within the club, not just the players. We spoke about Mez and other people there, that just made me feel welcome. It just made me think this is going to be a good place for me, because I hear stories of some other people who I was with at Man City. They went on loan to other places and they just hated it. They did not enjoy it at all. And for me, it was just a place where I was able to apply my trade, learn, make some really good friends that I still keep in contact with now, and I honestly do not regret anything I've done when it comes to Mansfield Town.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you.